The hall of the Galactic Council stood like a mountain made of light and glass. The chamber was so large that sound traveled in soft waves through the air. Thousands of alien beings sat in rows that curved upward like a giant shell. Their eyes, scales, fur, and wings shimmered under the white glow of the ceiling. Every voice was quiet now. Every head was turned toward the center, where one single figure stood alone. A human man named David Hale. He wore a simple gray uniform, torn at the edges, marked by dust and burns from his last mission. His hands were locked in magnetic cuffs that glowed blue. Two guards, tall beings from the cold planet Velkar, stood behind him with silent weapons at their sides. David did not fight or beg. He stood straight, tired but calm, as if he had already accepted his fate. The Supreme Elder of the Council, a tall being with silver skin and long eyes that never blinked, looked down from the highest seat. His voice was deep, almost echoing inside everyone's mind. He said, "Human David Hale of Earth, you are charged with violating 3 interstellar laws of the Council. You entered a restricted zone, used unregistered human technology, and interfered with the natural course of a collapsing world without Council approval. Do you understand these charges?" David nodded slowly. "I understand. Do you deny your actions?" "No," David said, his voice calm. "But I do not regret them either." A whisper spread across the hall like a sudden breeze. Aliens from 100 worlds murmured to each other. To them, humans were strange creatures, brave, reckless, and emotional. They were known to do the right thing at the wrong time, and that made the Council uneasy. The Elder struck his staff on the floor, and silence returned. "Then we must continue," he said. "You have broken the law of non-interference. You have endangered a region of space under protection. For that, the sentence is clear." Before he could finish, another elder, smaller and pale blue, raised her hand. "Perhaps we should let the human explain his reason," she said softly. "This may serve as record for future trials." The Supreme Elder gave a slow nod. "Very well. Speak, human. Why did you do it?" David looked up. His brown eyes were tired, but behind them was something stronger. He said, "Because they were dying and no one would help." The room was silent again. He went on. "The planet Neurosa was collapsing after a solar storm tore apart its atmosphere. The Council said it was outside your law zone. You said it was too dangerous, too far, but people were begging for help. I heard them. So I went." He paused, his voice still even. "I did not go to break your laws. I went to save lives." An elder with a crystal jaw spoke sharply. "You went to play hero, human. You risked balance for emotion. That is why your kind cannot be trusted with authority beyond your system." David did not reply. He had heard those words before. He knew how the Council saw humans. To them, humans were still new to galactic life, wild and unpredictable. But David had seen more suffering than rules. The Supreme Elder leaned forward. "Human, your compassion is noted. But compassion does not erase chaos. Every law broken weakens the order we built across the stars. The sentence for your action is death by energy release." A low sound filled the hall, a mechanical hum that vibrated under the floor. Lights around the chamber began to shift from white to blue, signaling the preparation for judgment. The guard stepped closer. David took a slow breath. He thought of his ship, the Ardent Star, now taken by the Council. He thought of his crew, scattered and silent. And he thought of the faces on Neurosa, the planet he had saved. The faces of people who had smiled through smoke and dust when they saw the sky return. That memory was enough for him. He raised his head and said quietly, "If saving lives is a crime, then I accept your punishment." Some in the audience lowered their heads. A few aliens turned away, but most watched with cold, judging eyes. To them, law was life. Emotion was weakness. The Supreme Elder lifted his hand. A ring of light began to rise around David's feet. The blue energy hummed louder, climbing up like a wall of mist. In a few moments, the field would reach his chest and erase him completely. David closed his eyes. There was no fear in him, only peace. He had made his choice long ago. The hum grew stronger. The light reached his knees, then his waist. The guard stood still. The elders watched without expression. The crowd held its breath. Then suddenly a voice broke the silence. It was not loud at first, but sharp, clear, filled with something stronger than fear. "Stop." Every head turned. The Supreme Elder's eyes narrowed. From the edge of the hall, a young alien woman pushed through the guards. Her long blue hair shimmered under the light, and her skin glowed faintly like polished stone. Her eyes, bright and green like crystal water, were wide with tears. She cried again, louder this time, her voice echoing through the chamber. "Don't kill him." The guards tried to stop her, but she ran faster, her steps light but desperate. The entire hall seemed frozen. She reached the center and stood before the energy ring, trembling. Her voice cracked as she screamed, "Don't kill my husband!" The energy around David flickered. The elders froze. The Supreme Elder's hand dropped slowly. The hum of the machine began to fade. All around, thousands of alien eyes widened in disbelief. David's eyes opened. He stared at her in shock. He knew that voice. He could not speak for a moment. His mind went blank as memories flooded back. The storm, the burning sky, the people he had saved, and among them her. Her name came to him like a whisper. Lyrian, she had been one of the survivors of Nerosa. He had pulled her out from the ruins when her home collapsed. He remembered her soft voice thanking him, her hands shaking when he told her they would live. He had not seen her again after the rescue. Now she was here, standing before the most powerful beings in the galaxy, claiming to be his wife. The Supreme Elder's voice broke the silence. "Who are you?" Lyrian's voice trembled, but her eyes were steady. "My name is Lyrian of Nerosa. I was one of the many he saved. I am alive because of him. We all are. He is not a destroyer. He is a protector. And yes, he is my husband." Gasps filled the air. Murmurs grew louder. Aliens from every seat whispered to each other. Some laughed in disbelief. Others watched her with surprise and curiosity. The Supreme Elder stared down. "Your claim is impossible. A union between a human and a Nerosian is not recognized by law. And this trial is not a place for emotion." Lyrian lifted her chin. "Then your law has forgotten what it means to live," she said firmly. "Because if a law kills a man who saved thousands, that law is wrong." Her words rang out across the chamber. Even the guards hesitated to move. David looked at her with disbelief, then pride. He could see the fear in her, but also the courage. She had crossed star systems to come here. She risked everything to stand before the council. The Supreme Elder's silver eyes blinked once, very slowly. Then he said, "This hearing is not yet finished. The energy field is to be halted. The council will review this claim." The humming sound died completely. The blue light faded away from David's body. His chains remained, but the threat of death was gone for the moment. The crowd began to speak in 1,000 voices, some shocked, some angry, some amazed. Never before had a council execution been stopped by one person's cry. David stood still, looking at Lyrian. She looked back at him, breathing hard but refusing to step away. For the first time in a long while, David felt something he thought he had lost, hope. And around them, the mighty council of the galaxy realized something was changing. The law they built might soon face the strongest force in the universe, the human heart. The great hall of the Galactic Council had never been so silent. The air felt heavy, almost alive, as every being in the chamber tried to understand what had just happened. A single human had been moments away from death, and a young alien woman had stopped it with her voice alone. The blue energy field that had almost erased David Hale was gone. Only faint sparks floated in the air like soft dust. The Supreme Elder slowly lowered his staff. His long silver eyes turned toward the young alien woman standing in the center. His voice was deep and calm, but behind it there was tension. "You will explain yourself, Nerosian." "What did you mean by those words?" Lyrian stood still, breathing hard. Her hands were shaking, but she lifted her head with quiet courage. "I meant what I said," she answered softly but clearly. "He is my husband. The man you're about to kill saved my people and my life. I love him, and I will not let you destroy him for doing what was right." The hall filled with gasps and murmurs. Some elders whispered to each other in disbelief. Others stared at her as if she had spoken something impossible. A few alien observers in the audience rose from their seats to get a better view of the human and the Nerosian woman standing together. David watched her silently. His mind was spinning. He never thought he would see her again. After the rescue on Nerosa, he had left before the council patrols arrived. He did not want them to trace him back to Earth. He thought she was safe and would live her life among her people, but now she stood before the highest authority in the galaxy, risking everything for him. The Supreme Elder's voice cut through the noise. Silence in the hall. "Guards, bring the Nerosian forward." 2 guards moved closer, their tall forms glowing under the council light. They guided Liran a few steps nearer to the elder's platform. Her heart was racing, but she refused to look away. The elder studied her for a long moment before speaking again. You claim to be bonded to a human. Such a claim carries no standing under our law, but this council will hear your words before deciding further. The pale blue elder from before leaned forward slightly, her expression curious. Let the woman speak, she said. Perhaps we will learn more about what truly happened on Nerosa. Liran took a slow breath and began to speak. Her voice was steady now, and as she spoke, the images of her memories filled the great hollow screens around the hall. The council had activated the memory capture to verify her words. My world, she said, was dying. We had no warning. Our sun released a storm that burned through our upper air and broke our weather system. Our oceans boiled. Crops turned to dust. We called for help. We sent messages to every council channel, but none answered. You said our world was outside the protection zone. You said you could not risk your ships. Her voice trembled slightly, but she went on. And then one day a small human ship appeared in our sky. It was not large or powerful, but it came anyway. It was David Hale and his crew. They landed in the middle of the storm and began building machines that could rebuild our air shield. I was part of the ground team trying to save what was left of the cities. I saw him work day and night with no rest. I saw him stand inside the storm when the machines failed. He saved thousands, and he saved me. The holoscreen showed flashes of her memory, a small ship fighting against lightning-filled skies, a human man running through burning winds, helping alien children into shelters. The audience watched in silence. The Supreme Elder's eyes narrowed, and yet he used human technology in violation of council safety rules. You do understand this, Liran nodded. Yes, but that technology saved us. Your rules would have left us dead. If this is a crime, then you should punish me too. I helped him. Gasps filled the air again. The guards looked at each other, unsure of what to do. The council chamber buzzed with mixed voices. Some argued she should be detained. Others said her courage deserved respect. David finally spoke. His voice was quiet but strong. She did help me. And she saved me too. When the storm reached the main generator, I almost didn't make it back. She pulled me out. If it weren't for her, I'd already be dead. The pale blue elder looked at him and then at her. So the two of you formed a bond during this event. Liran nodded. Yes, we did not plan it. It happened because we understood each other. He was ready to die for my people. I could not forget that. The Supreme Elder leaned back. His silver face remained still, but his eyes seemed to hold thought. You speak of emotion, yet the council is built upon reason. Do you truly believe your feelings can change the order of law? Liran lifted her chin. Then your law is missing something important. Life itself. There was a moment of complete silence after she said that. The words hung in the air like a quiet echo. Even the guards hesitated to move. The Supreme Elder finally spoke. This hearing will be suspended for 1 hour. The council will review the evidence. Guards, escort the human and the Nerosian to the waiting chamber. They are not to speak with anyone else. 2 guards stepped forward and guided David and Liran out through the tall silver doors. As they walked down the long corridor, the eyes of hundreds of alien witnesses followed them, some with anger, some with awe. Inside the waiting chamber, the door closed behind them. The room was quiet and bright, filled with soft light that came from the walls. David turned to face her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he said softly, You shouldn't have come here. Liran smiled faintly. And let them destroy you, I couldn't. I told myself I would not stay silent while you faced this alone. He sighed. They might punish you for what you said. I don't care, she replied. They can punish me, but they cannot change the truth. David looked at her with deep respect. You always were braver than me. Liran smiled again, a little sadly. No, you were the one who flew into a dying planet. You saved my world. I only came to save one person. For a while they stood there quietly, both lost in their thoughts. The air in the chamber was calm, but tension rested over them like an invisible weight. They did not know what the council would decide. Back in the main hall, the elders began to argue. Some wanted to proceed with the execution, claiming that personal bonds could not excuse law-breaking. Others said the case was no longer simple. The Humans Act had saved an entire species. Was that not worth reconsidering? The council had been created to protect life, yet here they were debating the value of one who had done exactly that. The Supreme Elder listened to all sides, but remained silent. His mind was on the words of the Nerosian woman. Life itself. They echoed again and again. When the hour ended, the guards returned for David and Liren. They were led back into the Great Hall. The noise of the crowd had changed. Now it was not anger but curiosity. Many alien delegates were whispering. The story of the human and the Nerosian woman had already spread through every channel in the building. As they reached the center, the Supreme Elder spoke again. The Council has decided to open a secondary investigation. The trial will not continue until we understand the full extent of your actions on Nerosa. The human will not be executed today. Lorraine's shoulders relaxed slightly. David closed his eyes for a moment, feeling relief. But the Elder's voice continued. However, both of you will remain under observation. Any false statement will be punished by exile from all Council systems. David nodded. Understood? Lyrian bowed her head. We will tell the truth. The Supreme Elder leaned forward slightly. Then tell us this, Nerosian. Why risk your life for this man? Why call him husband before all worlds? The hall became still again. Liren took a slow breath and looked at David. Her voice was soft but filled with strength. Because he showed me what your laws forgot. He showed me what it means to care without reason. He gave my people hope when no one else would. That is not a crime. That is love. And that love deserves to be heard. For a long moment no one spoke. The words floated in the air, and even the coldest elders seemed uncertain. The Supreme Elder finally struck his staff once. The Council will hear the story of Nerosa in full at the next session. Until then, this trial is adjourned. The lights dimmed slightly. The guards led David and Liren away again, but this time the crowd did not watch with hate. Many eyes followed them with quiet wonder. Some even nodded respectfully. As the great doors closed behind them, David looked at Liren. You just changed everything, he said softly. She smiled. Maybe. Or maybe I just reminded them that hearts exist even in a galaxy full of laws. And as they walked down the long corridor together, both of them felt something new in the air. The Council might still hold power, but for the first time, the truth had found a voice strong enough to make even the stars listen. The next morning, the twin suns of the Council's capital world rose over the silver towers of the city. Inside the Grand Chamber, thousands of alien delegates gathered again. The Council had called for a full hearing to uncover the truth about what had happened on the distant planet Nerosa. The case of the human David Hale had become more than a trial. It had become a test of justice itself. David sat quietly inside the defense circle, his wrists still bound by the magnetic cuffs. Liren sat beside him now, her soft blue skin glowing faintly under the light. She was no longer seen as a stranger who interrupted a trial. She was now a witness, a voice that might decide whether David lived or died. The Supreme Elder sat on the highest chair. His expression was calm, but his silver eyes were thoughtful. The other elders whispered among themselves. Some believed David's actions could inspire chaos. Others felt the law must bend when life was at stake. The elder with the crystal jaw stood and said, The Council will now hear the full account of what occurred on Nerosa. The human will speak first, followed by the Nerosian witness. David nodded. He stood slowly and looked around the chamber. The curved rows of alien faces stared down at him. Many still did not trust him, but some looked curious now. He began to speak. I was part of a human survey team exploring the border regions near Nerosa. Our mission was peaceful. We were studying star winds and radiation levels, but when we reached the Nerosa system, we saw something strange. The planet's orbit had changed. The sun was unstable. We detected massive radiation storms forming in the upper atmosphere. My crew wanted to leave, but I couldn't. I saw signs of life down there, billions of people who had no way to escape. He paused and looked up at the elders. We tried to contact the Council. We sent several messages. No one answered. The system was marked as unprotected. That meant no one was coming. The pale blue elder spoke softly. And you decided to interfere anyway. Yes, David said. Because if I didn't, an entire world would have died. We didn't have much time, but humans are good at making quick plans. We built atmospheric generators using our ship's shield cores. The machines were not perfect, but they could rebuild a layer to block the radiation. The hollow screens came alive, showing images from the ship's records. The crowd saw the dark clouds over Nerosa, the blinding flashes of lightning, and the small human ship diving through storms that looked like oceans of fire. David continued. The storm destroyed most of our first setup. We lost one crew member when the shield tower collapsed, but we kept working. The Neurosians helped us. They brought tools and power cells. They didn't even know our language, but we worked side by side. He looked at Liren for a moment. She was part of that group. I still remember her leading people through the wind. She was the one who convinced her own leaders to help us when they were afraid. The Supreme Elder listened in silence. The images showed David standing under a broken tower, holding a small control device as lightning struck around him. He was covered in ash and dust, shouting orders through the storm. After 3 days, David said, the generators started working. The air cleared. The radiation dropped. The planet was safe. We had saved it. But the Council patrol arrived that same day. They didn't come to help. They came to arrest me. A wave of murmurs filled the room. The elders had not known that part. The crystal-jawed elder frowned. You admit to using unapproved technology and entering restricted space. You understand that this could have caused an imbalance in the region? David nodded. I understand. But I ask you, what is the use of laws if they stop us from helping each other? The question made the chamber fall silent. Even those who disliked him could not ignore the weight of his words. The Supreme Elder looked down at Liren. Now we will hear from the Neurosian witness. Speak, and your memory will be recorded. Liren rose to her feet. Her voice was soft but steady. When the storms began, our people thought it was the end. We could not breathe the air. Our plants were dying. Our sky was burning. We called the Council for help, but no ship came. Then one day, a small human vessel appeared through the clouds. It was like a silver star breaking the storm. That was the day hope returned. She paused, her eyes filled with quiet emotion. We watched him work without rest. He repaired towers while the wind tried to tear them apart. He shared food with our children and gave water to our workers. He never spoke of himself, only of what we needed to do next. When one of our energy cores exploded, he went inside the fire to stop the chain reaction. He almost died that day. I pulled him out. He was weak and burned, but he still asked if the shield was holding. The hollow screens showed the memory, a faint image of Liren dragging David through smoke and sparks. The crowd could see it all. Liren's voice trembled but stayed firm. He saved us. He gave my people another chance to live. When the storm ended, our sky turned blue again. We looked up, and for the first time in months, we saw sunlight. My world calls him the human who gave us back the sky. How can that be a crime? Her words echoed through the chamber. For a moment, there was no sound. Even the guards seemed frozen. Finally, the Supreme Elder spoke again. Your story is powerful, but the laws of the Council exist for a reason. If every species acted by emotion, there would be chaos. David looked up and said, then maybe chaos is better than silence when lives are at stake. The Supreme Elder's silver eyes blinked slowly. You believe laws should be broken when they stand against life? I believe laws should serve life, not control it, David replied. The crowd began to whisper again. Some nodded quietly. Others frowned. The Council had never faced such a question in open session. The pale blue elder leaned forward. What happened after you left Neurosa? David took a breath. We stayed for 2 more days. We helped their scientists learn how to keep the generators stable. When we left, I told them the Council would probably come. I told them to tell the truth about what happened. But I didn't expect the Council to call it a crime, Lorraine added softly. When they came, we tried to explain. We showed them what he did. They didn't listen. They said humans were dangerous because they act from the heart, not the head. But maybe the galaxy needs more heart. The Supreme Elder was quiet for a long time. Then he said, you both have spoken. The Council must now decide whether compassion can stand above law. Until then, you will remain under protection. He struck his staff once, and the sound echoed like thunder. The hearing ended for the day. As the hall emptied, David and Liren were taken back to the waiting chamber. Inside, the air felt still and calm. David sat down on the edge of a metal bench and rubbed his wrists. You told them everything, he said softly. Yes, Liren replied. They needed to see what really happened. He looked at her with gratitude. You're risking your place, your people, even your freedom. Liren smiled gently. You risked all that first. I'm only following your example. Outside the chamber, alien voices filled the corridors. Reporters from dozens of systems were sending stories across the stars. Some called David a hero. Others called him a threat. But no one ignored him now. Inside the high chamber, the elders met in secret discussion. The pale blue elder spoke first. "This is no longer just about one man. The council itself is on trial. If we kill him, we show the galaxy that law is worth more than life." The crystal-jawed elder replied, "If we free him, we encourage rebellion against the council's order." The supreme elder listened without speaking. His long fingers tapped the edge of his staff. Finally, he said quietly, "Perhaps the law must grow. The galaxy is changing, and so must we." The meeting ended with no clear answer. The council would reconvene in 2 days. In the quiet of the waiting chamber, David and Lyraean sat together, looking through the small window at the city below. The lights of the towers sparkled like stars. David said softly, "No matter what they decide, I don't regret it." Lyraean looked at him with calm eyes. "I know that's why they're afraid of you. Not because of what you did, but because you reminded them that even in a universe of rules, a single human heart can still change everything." The grand hall of the Galactic Council was silent when David and Lyraean returned. The chamber, which had once hummed with strict order, now felt different. The words of the young Nerosian woman had spread throughout the galaxy like a spark, and whispers of hope and curiosity filled the seats where hundreds of alien delegates sat. The Supreme Elder gazed down at the pair, his long silver fingers lightly tapping the edge of his staff. He had called the session to order, but even he could feel the tension in the air. The council had become divided. On one side, the traditionalists insisted that the human must be punished. "His actions broke the law, and breaking the law is dangerous," said an elder with golden feathers and multiple eyes. "If we let him go unpunished, what message are we sending to the galaxy?" Across the chamber, a different group of elders argued passionately. He saved a world. Thousands of lives were at stake. Compassion cannot be ignored. "Law without heart is meaningless," said an elder whose skin shone like molten silver. Others nodded, their voices joining in support. The Supreme Elder raised his hand and silence returned. This council faces a question that it has never faced before. Do we uphold law above life, or do we allow life to guide our decisions? The words hung in the air. Every delegate understood the weight of the moment. The galaxy watched, and the choice they made would not only decide David's fate, but could change the way humans were seen for generations. David stood quietly beside Lyraean. His heart beat faster than it had in the trial chamber, but he did not speak. He watched the debate, hearing the different opinions, realizing that the council had never faced a situation like this before. They had always relied on order and logic, but here was a human, one small man who had shown them the power of courage and compassion. Lyraean, sensing his unease, gently touched his arm. "It will be okay," she said softly. "You have already done the right thing. Now they just need to see it." David nodded, grateful for her calm presence. He looked at her and thought of all the times he had feared failure during the Nerosa rescue. Yet here she was, his friend, his ally, and she claimed his partner. The debate continued. Voices rose, some accusing, some defending. The golden-feathered elder argued that allowing humans to act freely would invite chaos. "They are unpredictable," he said. "We have seen it before. Humans act on impulse, ignoring rules, ignoring danger. If we allow one to break the law, we cannot stop the next from doing worse." A younger elder spoke up, her skin transparent like glass, revealing softly glowing veins beneath. And yet, this human saved a world that the council refused to protect. If rules must be broken to save life, then the rules are wrong. Life comes first, not order. The council erupted into whispers again. Some elders shook their heads in disbelief. Others muttered approval. The chamber had never been so alive with discussion. Finally, the Supreme Elder raised his hand once more. "Enough, let us examine the facts." The human, David Hale, acted in a restricted zone. He used human technology in violation of council rules. But he also saved a planet from destruction. The Nerosian woman, Lyraean, testifies that thousands of lives were saved. Let the evidence speak for itself. A hollow screen activated, showing maps, energy readings, and the aftermath of the storm on Nerosa. Delegates leaned forward as they watched the planet slowly recover. Cities that had been broken were now standing. Forests had regrown. Oceans shimmered in blue once again. "This is what you call interference?" asked one elder from a water world, her voice soft but firm. The human acted with care. His interference restored balance, not destroyed it. The golden-feathered elder shook his head. Balance is not our decision to ignore. The law exists to protect systems from humans who act on emotion. One world saved does not erase the danger humans pose. A deep voice from the back of the chamber interrupted. Perhaps the danger humans pose is overstated. Perhaps this is the first time we have truly understood them. They are different, yes, but not necessarily a threat. They act from heart as well as mind. That is something we have never seen before. The room became quiet. Many delegates turned to see who had spoken. It was an elder from a desert world, one with skin that shone like red sand. He stood firm, his multiple arms folded. This human, he continued, did not act for power. He did not act for profit or conquest. He acted to save life. If law punishes such action, then the law must change. David listened to all of this quietly, trying not to let his nerves show. His eyes kept finding Liren's. She was calm, her green eyes steady, her hand resting lightly on his arm. Her presence gave him strength, reminding him why he had risked everything in the first place. The Supreme Elder finally spoke, his voice firm and deep. The council is divided. There is no consensus. The law is clear, yet life demands consideration. We will take a recess. In 2 cycles, we will reconvene to decide whether the human may live or face execution. David exhaled quietly, feeling tension leave him for the moment. He and Liren were escorted to a private chamber in the council building, where they could rest and prepare for the final decision. Inside the chamber, Liren poured 2 small cups of warm liquid from a glowing container. She handed one to David. "You need to eat something," she said softly. "You look tired." David smiled faintly. "I'm not hungry, but thank you." She sat beside him. "Do you think they will release you?" David shrugged. "I don't know. I think they will have to think very hard about it. I've never faced anything like this before. The council believes humans are dangerous. Now they are beginning to see something else. But will it be enough?" Liren reached out and held his hand. "You already changed things today. You reminded them that life is more important than law. That alone matters." David looked at her, feeling a deep warmth in his chest. He thought of all the people he had saved. He thought of Liren and how brave she had been. He realized that even if the council did not forgive him, they could not erase the hope he had given. Outside the chamber, the council reconvened in secret. Discussions turned heated. Some elders argued that humans could never be trusted to act on emotion alone. Others said the galaxy needed more humans like David Hale, courageous, compassionate, and willing to act when others refused. Finally, the Supreme Elder spoke. "The human has shown that action from the heart can save worlds. But the law must also be considered. Therefore, the council must find a compromise. The human will be placed under supervised protection. He will be allowed to continue exploring under strict guidance. His actions on Nerosa will be recorded as a case study for future reference." Gasps filled the chamber. Some elders frowned in anger. Others nodded slowly. The Supreme Elder continued. "The human will not be executed. However, any future violation of council law will be treated with full severity. This decision honors life while preserving order. Let this serve as a lesson to all." Back in the private chamber, David felt a wave of relief wash over him. "They let me live," he said softly, disbelief in his voice. Liren smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "Yes, you did it. You survived the council, and they have started to understand humans a little better." David looked out the small window at the shining city below. "This changes everything," he said. "Not just for me, but for all humans." "Yes," Liren agreed. "The galaxy will remember this. They will remember that humans are more than rules and chaos. We have hearts, and hearts can change the universe." David turned to her, his voice full of gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you. You saved me in more ways than one." She smiled gently. "And you saved my people. We saved each other. That is what matters." For the first time since the trial began, David felt hope for the future. The council's decision had not only given him life, but it had also opened the door for humans to be seen differently across the galaxy. As they sat together, watching the sun rise over the city towers, David realized that the journey was far from over. There would be more challenges, more trials, and more decisions to make. But he was no longer alone. Liren stood beside him, a reminder that courage, love, and heart could survive even in the most powerful halls of the galaxy. Outside, the council continued its debates. Some elders would never fully accept humans. Others began to see that a single human could change not only one world, but the thoughts and hearts of countless beings across the stars. The galaxy had learned something new that day. A human had faced death and survived, not through fear or power, but through courage, compassion, and the support of one brave alien woman. And that was only the beginning. The halls of the Galactic Council had never felt so alive. The news of David Hale's survival and the courage of Lyran had spread quickly throughout the chambers and across the galaxy. Delegates whispered to one another, not with anger, but with curiosity and even admiration. The trial had become more than a simple hearing. It had become a story about humanity, courage, and the power of compassion. David and Lyran were escorted to a private chamber to await the final session. The room was quiet and filled with soft light that reflected off the silver walls. They were allowed to move freely now, and the magnetic cuffs were removed. The freedom made David feel light, though his mind was still heavy with thoughts of what was to come. He looked at Lyran. Her eyes shone with determination and hope. "Do you think they will truly accept us?" he asked quietly. Lyran smiled gently. "They already are beginning to. You showed them that humans are capable of more than fear and rules. You showed them the value of courage. Now they just need time to understand it fully." David nodded. He knew she was right. The council was old, with rules that had been followed for thousands of cycles. But sometimes one small act could ripple across the galaxy and change everything. Outside the chamber, the council convened for the final session. The Supreme Elder rose from his seat and all the delegates fell silent. His long fingers rested on the staff as he addressed the chamber. "We have reviewed the evidence, listened to witness testimony, and observed the courage of one human and one Neurosian woman. The Council recognizes that while laws exist to maintain order, they must serve life, not hinder it." A murmur of agreement spread through the hall. Some delegates still hesitated, but many nodded in respect. The Supreme Elder continued, "David Hale, for your bravery, your intelligence, and your compassion, the Council has decided the following. You will be placed under supervised exploration privileges. You may continue your missions with oversight, but you will not face execution. Your actions on Nerosa are recorded as a model for future reference. Let this case serve as an example that courage guided by compassion is worthy of respect, even among the stars." David felt a rush of relief. His knees nearly gave way as he sank into his seat. Lyran placed her hand on his arm, giving him quiet support. The Supreme Elder turned to Lyran. "And you, Neurosian woman, have displayed courage beyond measure. Your voice has reminded this council of the value of life, love, and truth. You are commended for your actions and your loyalty. Your testimony will remain in the record as an example of bravery and integrity." Lyran's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. "Thank you," she said softly. The council session adjourned and the delegates began to leave the chamber, their discussions now lighter, more hopeful. The story of David and Lyran had already begun to spread to other star systems. Humans were being seen not only as unpredictable, but as capable of extraordinary courage and compassion. Once the hall was empty, David and Lyran were escorted to a small observation balcony. From there, they could see the city spread below, towers of silver catching the light of twin suns. The city hummed with activity, but there was also a sense of calm. It was as if the galaxy itself had paused to breathe after the storm of the trial. David turned to Lyran. "I never imagined anyone would come to speak for me like you did." "I thought I was alone." Lyran shook her head. "You were never alone. Even when I wasn't there physically, I was watching, hoping, and waiting. Humans act quickly, but they never forget the people they save. That is why I came. Because I knew you would need someone to speak when the time came." David took a deep breath. "You didn't just save me. You reminded them that life matters. You reminded them that the galaxy is bigger than law alone." Lyran smiled faintly. "And you reminded them that humans have hearts, even in a universe of rules." The two of them stood quietly, taking in the city below. For the first time in cycles, David felt truly safe. He had survived the council, and more importantly, he had survived the doubts within himself. He realized that the galaxy could change, and maybe humans could become a part of that change. After a moment, Lyran spoke. "The council will watch you closely, but they will also give you opportunities. There are other worlds where life is at risk. Others who may need your help," David nodded. Then we have work to do. He looked at her with a new determination. Together. Liren smiled and nodded. Together. The days that followed were filled with preparation. David and Liren studied maps of distant star systems, analyzed potential rescue missions, and spoke with council scientists and strategists. The council was careful, but they allowed them more freedom than most humans had ever seen in galactic history. During this time, David and Liren grew closer. Their partnership was not just for survival, but for purpose. They learned each other's strengths, understanding that together they could achieve more than either could alone. Liren taught David about the complexities of Neurosian technology and culture. David shared human problem-solving skills and quick-thinking strategies. They complemented each other perfectly. One evening, as the twin suns dipped behind the horizon, painting the city in shades of gold and blue, David and Liren stood on the balcony. Liren leaned her head on his shoulder and David wrapped his arm around her. "Do you think the galaxy will ever truly understand humans?" she asked softly. David thought for a moment. "Maybe not fully, but they are starting to see what we can do. They saw me, a single human, act when no one else would. And they saw you, a Neurosian woman, risk everything to speak the truth. That is a start," she smiled. "It is more than a start. It is a hope for the future." The two of them stood in silence for a while, watching the city lights shimmer below. The council had made its decision, but the real journey was just beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of worlds in need of help, civilizations to understand and laws to guide without suffocating life. In the weeks that followed, David and Liren traveled to several planets that faced disasters, collapsing atmospheres, failing energy grids, and unstable star systems. Every time they acted, they did so carefully, combining human ingenuity with Neurosian knowledge. They were watched by council observers, but more and more those observers began to trust them. David realized something important. Humans were often judged by their impulsive actions, but when their hearts and minds worked together, they could achieve extraordinary things. And now he was living proof of that. Liren noticed his thoughts. "You've changed the way they see humans," she said. "And not just humans. You've reminded them that one person can make a difference." David smiled. "Maybe one person with someone by their side can change a lot more." Months passed, and David's name became known across the galaxy, not as a criminal, but as a hero. Humans began to be invited to council meetings more often, not as threats but as allies, and alongside him Liren was always there, her courage and voice a constant reminder of what had been at stake. One day, as they prepared for another mission, David looked at her and said, "Do you remember that moment in the council chamber, when you screamed for me? That was the moment everything changed." Liren laughed softly. "Yes, I remember. I was scared, but I could not stay silent. You were about to die, and I could not let that happen. It was the only choice I had." David took her hand, and it saved us both. "You saved me, and you saved hope for every human who comes after me." She smiled, her green eyes bright. "Then let's make sure we keep saving lives together." David nodded. Together. And so, their story became a legend, not just of one human and one alien, but of the courage, compassion, and heart that could bridge species, worlds, and even the laws of the galaxy. The council had learned an important lesson. Compassion was not a weakness. It was a force stronger than fear, stronger than law, and capable of changing the universe. David and Liren stood on the balcony of the council's capital once more, watching the stars rise. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, full of challenges and hope, and together, they knew they could face anything, bringing light and life to worlds that needed it most. The human heart, once condemned by the council, had now become a symbol of courage, compassion, and the potential of all humanity. And across the stars, the message spread. Even in a universe of rules, a brave human, guided by heart, could inspire hope for everyone.